Hello 啊，大家好啊！今日好開心又請到輝哥同我哋分享下英國投資物業嘅心得。Hello 啊，輝哥。
Hello，小編你好。
輝哥啊，今日我哋係咪請到一個 mortgage broker 同我哋解答下一啲疑難啊？
係啊，咁我哋揾到個 mortgage broker 同幫大家解答問題啦。咁我亦都見到我哋 Facebook post 咧有好多唔同嘅問題嘅。咁我都should get started。
好啊，都唔阻大家時間啦。以下時間交翻俾阿輝哥同埋個 broker。
Yeah. So I mean, like for what is a mortgage broker? Why do we need mortgage broker instead of the buyer go to the bank directly to get a mortgage?
Okay, so there's a lot of lenders out there. There's not just your normal high street lenders such as you put on there as being HSBC. There's a lot of specialist lenders that are available to international investors, which is what Hong Kong clients would be classed as. They're also there for expats and such like. We've got access to all of these lenders who have different criteria, different rates, work differently dependent on what your circumstances are. So from that point of view, we're able to access a lot more or know of a lot more and do all the background research and all the work for you.
Yeah.
We're also kept up to date with all the changes that are happening at the moment. Obviously at the moment with the pandemic, there's been a lot of changes, but normally there's just a few changes every now and then. So we know firsthand what's happening. So for example, I've had clients who've contacted me recently to say, well, I've noticed that HSBC now are increasing their LTVs. We're able to go and say, we haven't introduced HSBC to you because those increases have been for residential mortgages rather than being for investment mortgages. So that wouldn't have an impact there. It also is to do with the speed. So I know of some lenders, you can go to them directly, but you need to make an appointment to speak to them, which can take up to a week just to be able to go and to have the meeting, to have a decision in principle generated.
That's right, yes.
If you contact us, we can go and get the decision in principle for you on the day. So there's a speed element as well. So especially if you're buying a property, you need to show that you can get the mortgage, the finance. We're able to give that to you rather than you having to wait for the lender to contact you directly.
咁啊 ，Fran 啱啱提及過咧，就除咗普遍嘅銀行啊，例如中銀啊、渣打同埋匯豐之外咧，亦都有好多未聽見過嘅銀行。咁佢哋屬於比較 specialized 啲嘅銀行啦，提供啲英國海外同埋外籍人士身份咧，就屬於 specialized 啦。而 broker 佢哋可以做得到咧，就係可以有門路去接觸呢啲銀行，同你申請借貸，而佢哋會利用你個人資料去配合唔同借貸公司嘅要求，然之後佢會同你做啲 research 去揾邊一間銀行可以接受你啦，然之後就幫你揾個最好嘅利率揾去做呢個借貸活動咯。咁一般市場情況咧都比較少變動嘅呢啲借貸公司嘅規例啊。咁最近肺炎影響到市場上好多嘢都改變啦。咁 mortgage broker 亦都會第一手得到呢啲資料嘅。另外，大部分銀行如果你自己去申請嘅話咧，都需要去 book 個 appointment 啦。咁先至可以申請個借貸嘅。咁如果你用 broker 嘅話咧，佢哋就減少咗你去 book appointment 同埋去時間啦。咁相反講啦，係咪就係可以話你個 decision principle 咧就會快啲去製造出嚟，咁你就可以拎住張 decision in principle 去落 offer 咯。
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So what experience a lot as well when a lot of investors find an ideal property is they move too slow. Most of the time it's due to a lot of paperwork included. So for someone that's not non-UK residents, when they apply for a buy-to-let mortgage in UK, how do they do it?
So if you're working with us, we would have already built up the relationship there with you. You'd have completed a fact find document for us.
Yeah.
So we've got all your information and any supporting information that might be needed. When you find the property that you want and that you want to get the finance on, if you send us the details of the property, we'd be able to provide you with the decision in principle. And if you're happy with that, we'd then be able to start the process of application. So to be able to get the decision in principle, the main part is that you do need to have the property to be able to, that you're looking at, to be able to submit for the finance. You can't agree for finance prior to having that property or knowing what property you're looking at. But because we have your fact find, when it comes to doing the application, we've got all the information there and can start doing the application forms and get that submitted for you. So we've done a lot of the work prior to you needing to apply. So it's getting you prepared for it.
Okay. I mean, for at the moment, ideally, for investing in Hong Kong now, the first things first is probably try to get a agreement in principle first. So for them, let's say the budget is £150,000. Find £150,000 in the area that they're looking for, and use that address first to get AIP. And then do the search. Once you've got AIP, they will do the search from there onward then, yeah?
So to get an AIP, you need to know what the property is. So what we're able to let you know is if you were saying, I've got £150,000 and I'm looking to purchase a property, it will be a buy-to-let, 3-bedroom buy-to-let, for example, we can provide you with an illustration. So it's not from the lender, it will be an illustration that we're able to provide to say, well, you'd be looking at getting a mortgage that would look like this. You'd be looking at these rates, this amount of money, and the such. Like the AIP that you get from the lender, you need to have that property in mind. So if you're looking for a property that's £100,000 for easy numbers, you can say to you, well, you can get a mortgage up to 80% LTV, so you can get up to £80,000, and it will be this rate as long as it's a single buy-to-let. Then you're fine for that. So you'll have an idea about what you'll be able to get. It will only be specific from the lender though once you've got the property in mind that you're looking at.
咁阿 Fran 啱啱提及到咧，海外人士係可以申請到buy-to-let mortgage 嘅喺英國。咁首先要佢哋個人資料俾咗 broker 先啦，之後就要一個地址。咁譬如你譬如想買 Manchester 區嘅 M21、M18 都好啦。咁揾個地址類似嘅屋，譬如 semi-detached 3房嘅，咁就揾一間大概咁嘅價錢，俾咗佢咧就可以利用呢個地址去整一個 DIP。咁之後你係咪用翻同一個地址買呢間屋咧？其實唔需要嘅，咁可以個地址可以改變嘅。咁通常個 decision principle 咧都係幾日之內會搞掂。當然佢會提供係我借幾多錢啦，個利息係幾多啦。都會 show 晒出嚟，然之後咧你就拎住張decision principle 去落 offer 啦。當 offer accept 咗之後咧，咁間銀行內部運作都唔一樣，咁佢哋嘅 completion time 亦都有差。
So what makes a buy-to-let interest rate will be lower? Would it be mainly from the lender themselves or from the applicants?
So mortgage rates differ dependent on whether you're classed as being international or you're an expat, also so you've got a British passport, but that differs lender to lender. So some lenders will say, well, you've got a British passport but you've never lived in the UK, well, we'll still treat you as being an expat. Other lenders will say you haven't lived, even though you've got a British passport, you've never lived in the UK, so classing you as international. Different lenders offer different rates, so it depends on whether you like that type of lender. So we'd go through it with you to decide what's important to you, what you're looking for, to be able to determine what the rates are going to be.
Okay. So from what I hear is different banks or different lender will classify you differently, depends on how the company procedure then. Okay. Finally, for my side, due to current situation with the pandemic, what products there is available? Because I know a lot of the lender pull off a lot of the products for overseas investors. So I mean, can we talk about what's there currently now on the we're on 26th of April now, and what's there beforehand before the lockdown?
Okay, prior to the lockdown, you were looking at LTVs being up to 80%, and you were looking at rates being from about, in the main for buy-to-lets, from about 3.9%. What we've seen now is that the rates have remained the same, but the LTV has reduced down to 65%, and this is mainly because we can't physical valuations can't take place. The surveyors can't visit the properties, and so they're now doing automated or desktop valuations, which they have a higher risk because you obviously haven't seen the property. So to decrease that risk, they've decreased the LTV that's available. It's also meant that interest rates have remained the same, but it's meant that the minimum property value is now £95,000, whereas prior to the pandemic, to have around 3.9%, you'd be looking at it being 75,000. If you were looking at one, you could get a mortgage below 75,000, so anything down to about £50,000 for the property value, but then you'd be looking at higher rates of 7.99%. But as of today, you're looking at it being 65% LTV on a £95,000 minimum property value.
咁點樣可以令到buy-to-let interest rate 降低咧？就以個人嘅身份為主要先啦。咁你可以expat 又得，本地身份亦都得。咁同埋佢哋個人嘅 experience 有幾多物業資產咁樣都會有影響佢哋嘅利率嘅。咁肺炎期間咧，之前係借得到 loan to value 80% 啦，即係80%嘅按揭啦。咁暫時咧就個利率都大概 3.9 左右嘅。咁暫時個利率咧都保持喺 3.9 附近for overseas buy-to-let 啦。同埋佢哋嘅但係佢哋嘅 loan to value 咧就降低咗大概60至65%， 原因因為佢哋冇得去實質去個地方去做個 valuation， 所以佢哋嘅 risk 咧比較高，所以借嘅錢亦都比較少咯，即係loan to value 少啲嘅。
So, right. So again, it differs lender to lender. Some lenders will say, because you've got UK passports, but you've never lived in the UK, we'll treat you as being expat. Other lenders will say, because you haven't lived in the UK, we won't treat you as an expat. So it depends on which lender we're approaching. We'd have to understand your circumstances to then give you the options about which lenders we could approach based on your situation.
Yeah. So I think this reflects a lot why we need it's good to work with a broker, is because once your information are put in, the broker will be able to look into the pool of lender with no criteria to see what's best out there for you in the markets.
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
And because there's so many lenders, they've all got different criteria. So there might be, if you're doing it yourself, there might be lenders that you wouldn't have even considered or wouldn't have known about. But we know about those because your situation matches up to what their criteria is.
Yeah. Okay.
Again, it differs lender to lender. They will ask about your visas, what type of visa you have to be in the UK. And then again, it's different lender to lender. Some will say, yes, we'll accept them. Some will say, we won't. So again, we'd have to go to different lenders based on your circumstances to check what their criteria is.
Okay. 咁當按揭公司點樣去即係判斷你係屬於 UK passport holder 啊，或者係海外投資咧？佢哋每間借貸公司嘅內部政策咧都唔一樣。咁當然，譬如你住咗英國會當你係英國身份去借錢，亦有啲公司亦都當你係海外投資者身份去借錢。咁broker 咧就會用你嘅身份去擺晒俾唔同嘅借貸公司，同你睇下邊一個係借得到錢俾你先啦，然之後佢哋嘅利率係借幾多，同埋可以借幾多錢俾你咯。
So next page where we'll talk about some mortgage application and assessments.
So for most of the lenders that we deal with, they offer the same rates for both limited companies and individuals. They offer same LTVs, so there aren't any differences. By being an individual, there is another lender which is accessible to you, which isn't accessible for a limited company. Their rates are slightly lower, but then their LTVs are lower, and they tend to be based on a repayments basis rather than a interest-only basis. And they've got tighter criteria about how many properties you could own when you're building your portfolio. So in the main, the lenders that we would approach would offer the same rates for limited companies and individuals. The process is exactly the same. It would be the supporting information that you'd have to give, which may be different. So if you were just applying as an individual, you'd have to give things like your bank statements, your proof of ID, proof of address, details about your employment. If you were a limited company, you'd have to give all of that, but you'd also have to provide details of your limited company. So if it being an operation for more, and you'd already filed your first year's accounts, they can ask for up to 2 years accounts for the limited company. So it's just additional information that would need to be given.
咁講到呢度用個人名義或者有限公司身份名義去借貸款咧，就唔係太多分別嘅。咁都係以每間按揭公司嘅內部嘅規限而定啦。咁佢哋嘅利率咧都通常差唔多嘅。咁反而用有限公司咧會睇下你嘅還款嘅數目有分別咯。反而用個人名義咧就係睇下你嗰個利息。
Okay. So does the lender actually look at the overseas credit reports or credit score from the lender?
So they can't check your credit records overseas, which is why they ask for so much information on the outset. So it is a lot of documents that you're having to give, but you've got to think they can't do their checks in the background like they would do if you were based in the UK. Yeah. They'll ask you about your assets and liabilities, but that's again based on you giving the information. They tend to ask that if you've got a mortgage already and it's overseas, they'll ask you to provide your mortgage statement for the past 12 months, and that's down to mortgage conduct. In the UK, we need to show that we've had mortgage conduct, which they're able to check by doing our credit reports. Obviously, being overseas, they'll have to ask you to provide that information. It's not for everybody they ask. They tend to ask that more for if you're looking at HMOs, buy-to-lets. It's not so much because they welcome first-time landlords from that point of view. Okay. Landlord experience. Again, when it comes to buy-to-lets, they don't tend to ask for landlord experience. Again, it depends which lender we're going to, but the lender would tend to wouldn't ask for landlord experience. If you were looking at HMOs, then they do ask for landlord experience, but that's just because HMOs are riskier, and so they need to know you've got the experience there. But that's the same for UK applicants as well. It's not specific just for international investors.
And with a lot of buy-to-let now, single buy-to-let, does it make any difference if there's a tenant in the property compared to no tenants in the property when the application being put through?
No, if you've got them, then they'll ask for copies of the ASTs as part of so they can see that it's there. If you haven't got anybody in at the moment, they'll be asking why isn't somebody in there. But if you're doing it as part of purchase, they wouldn't be asking for it because you could be buying it from somebody who's living there and has it as their residential property. They'll be asking more questions about how you're going to have the property managed with you being in Hong Kong, who's managing the property in the UK for you, and ask for their details.
咁有香港嘅朋友就問話即係貸款公司會唔會睇到佢香港嘅 credit history 啊，或者送貸嘅資料咧？喺依度嘅 lender 咧係睇唔到嘅 ，check 唔到嘅。咁佢哋唯一可以做到咧就係你提供嘅資料，利用你提供嘅資料去交俾佢哋借貸公司。咁通常唔會 都唔會問你大概嗰啲即係做業主嘅經驗啊，或者有冇買過屋㗎咁樣。唯一就係如果你想買 HMO 嘅話咧，就比較需要知道你嘅experience 啦。原因 HMO 係一個高危產品嚟嘅，咁當然你一定要有一定嘅借錢俾你，會有多啲送金俾你咯。
I see. Yeah. Does it make any difference being a freehold or leasehold property at all?
It doesn't. They'll ask the periods that you've got left on the leasehold, how many years you've got left, and so that. But as long as you, by the end of the finance, you've got more than 50 years remaining, then you should be fine. Most properties, when the leasehold first goes on, it's for 999 years. So, and then it just obviously comes down over the years. It will only be when it gets to legals, the solicitor will have to do more work checking out the leasehold side of it. But they know how to do that and they know what information they've got to get from that. So it's just more questions that will be asked.
Yeah. 咁有啲朋友就問借貸如果 freehold 同 leasehold 對借貸嚟講有冇分別咧？其實係冇乜分別嘅。咁佢哋就通常會睇開咧，就係你即係個借貸個期完咗之後啦，係咪仲有50年剩？咁呢個係通常嘅 minimum requirements 咯。
So the maximum loan is based on the property value. So when they say that the property that they'll give, say 80% LTV, it will be based on the value of the property. So if it's £100,000, they'll give a maximum of 80,000, and that's based on the valuation that the lender has instructed on their behalf. If you say your property is worth 100,000 and it comes back saying the property is 90,000, then they'll lend based on the 90,000, not the 100,000. Your income or salary isn't taken into consideration for the maximum loan amount. That each lender has a minimum income that you're receiving, but that's purely from their criteria point of view. It doesn't go and impact what you can have on maximum value. Rental income, this is to do with, again, it won't be to do with the maximum loan, but they'll say that you need to have between 125 and 145% rental coverage. So you're looking at, if they're saying 125% rental coverage, then if your mortgage payment is £300, so if your mortgage payment is £400, you'll need to be having £500 rental income to be able to cover it. So they know that there's the flexibility for you to be able to cover it, and you're covered from that point of view. But again, that doesn't impact your maximum loan. The main driver to the maximum loan is the value of the property.
咁借貸公司最主要就係睇佢哋估價個物業嘅估價為主先啦。咁當你間屋咧係市場係100千嘅，即係100萬港紙啦。咁但係如果佢哋 valuation 只係得90萬嘅咧，佢哋會由90萬個價再去俾個 loan to value 俾你。咁換句話咁，譬如啦，咁個市場價係100萬，但係佢哋估價只係俾得90萬咧，而又只係借得嗰50% 咧，咁即係你可以只係借到45萬嘅啫。咁希望大家明白到呢個佢哋估價同埋市場價嘅分別咯。咁會唔會based on 佢哋嘅 rental income 咧？呢個為次嘅。咁佢哋當嗰個估價完咗之後啦，就下一個步驟就係你收入嘅租金可唔可以負擔得到 1.25 測試？咁譬如你借貸嗰度每個月要還1000磅啦，咁你租金嗰度有冇1250磅至1400磅嘅收入咧？咁就係呢個屬於佢哋嘅 rental 嘅壓力測試啦。
If you're employed, they ask for pay slips. If you're self-employed, they will ask for the equivalent of UK tax returns and accounts for your company. So they'll ask for that information instead of pay slips.
Okay, so a lot of Hong Kong retired people have got a really big pension. where they get roughly about £2,000 to £3,000 a month from it. So with that income, can they use that to apply for a buy-to-let mortgage in the UK?
Yes, as long as it meets the minimum income amounts that's set out in the criteria, then yeah, they can still apply if they're retired.
Okay, so what is the minimum income amounts they're looking at from these lenders?
You're looking at around £20,000 to £25,000 gross, or the equivalent over in Hong Kong.
Yeah, so there should be a lot of people in Hong Kong able to afford it then in that case. Okay,
Yeah.
the last question from this page, Ada.
How much information is needed from the application to submit?
So they will ask for pay slips, they will ask for personal bank statements, they will ask for UK bank statements. So if you've got your bank account open, then the bank account that you're going to be paying the mortgage from. Proof of ID, proof of address, which is normal for anybody. What else will they've got the ASTs, pay slips, and then different lenders again, different information that's specific to them. So each lender has different requirements. But in the main, across the board, you're looking at bank statements, ID, address, and ASTs if you've got them as well. And that's the same for whether you're an international investor or UK-based investor.
咁有人問到就如果係以一個business owner 即係僱主形式身份或者打工身份去借有乜分別咧？其實分別唔係太大嘅啫，processing 一樣嘅，需要你香港嘅 bank statement 啦，同埋你英國銀行嘅資料，唯一分別嘅咧就係你僱主咧就要俾一個 tax return 同埋你嘅公司條數去俾佢。如果你係打工嘅話，你需要俾你嘅 pay slip 去申請咯。咁有人問到如果退休嘅人士可唔可以用佢嘅 pension 去借 buy to let mortgage 咧？係得嘅。唔理你係 pension 人士或者打工或者自僱人士啦，咁你最少嘅收入咧係要2萬至2萬5英鎊就可以合格㗎啦。咁通常如果問要俾幾耐嘅bank statement 咧，間銀行唔一樣嘅，不過最少係三個月。有某啲銀行可能要求你要6個月嘅bank statement 同埋資料。
Is there any difference between mortgage or remortgage rates at the moment from your side?
No, there isn't. They've been pretty much hit. They've said here the products, and the products are the same for both purchasing and refinance. So the rates haven't changed. And with the pandemic, even though the base rate in the UK is reduced, we haven't seen that follow on to the rates being offered by the lenders. They've remained pretty static across the board. So both for international investors and UK-based investors, they've remained pretty much the same. There hasn't been many changes.
That's great. Obviously, we flip a lot as well from here in UK. So let's say I buy a property cash and I did the refurbishment on the property, get a tenant inside it. When can I start do the refinancing? Can I do it within 3-4 months time after purchasing?
All lenders are different, so it depends what's important to you. In the main, you're looking at if you purchase it and you're looking for the increased value, you should keep hold of the property for 6 months before you go and try and finance it up at the higher rate. There is some lenders will let you do it pre-6 months, but will only base it on the purchase price. There's other lenders who will let you do it pre-6 months, and will base it on the purchase price and the amount of work that you've put into it. But that won't necessarily be the full market value. But if you were looking at wanting to get full market value, then you'd be looking at owning it for 6 months before you went and started to get the surveyors coming out from the lender to go and assess it and say how much it's worth.
I mean, with some of the flippers, I know from UK, they tend to go for business loan rather than refinance through a normal mortgage. They put a bridge in it or one way or another. So can you explain the difference between mortgaging, bridging, as well as maybe refinance with a business loan?
Okay, so bridging is short-term finance. It's normally up to 12 months maximum. And they're not as stringent when it comes to getting the money.
Yep.
The process is a lot quicker, but the rates are a lot higher. So you'd be looking at on average around 1% a month that you'll be paying. But they're there to be able to, so you can go and buy a property.
Yep.
And then go and do the work on it. We find that it's also used a lot if anybody ever buys property at auction in the UK. They do that because it's a quick turnaround and the process doesn't take as long. As I said, the rates are high. That allows you to do the work. And then once it's all been completed, you then can go onto term finance, or another word for a mortgage, which means that the lender agrees that they'll lend you the money for, say, 25 years.
Yep.
And within those 25 years, the first 2 years, for example, would be at a fixed rate. And then after those 2 years, you'd still be able to have the mortgage for another 18 years, but it would change onto one of their standard variable rates, unless you then went and moved on to another fixed term product with them.
Okay. So bridging is more for the development part where it's a quick turnaround and money to get a project done then, yeah?
Yes, because with a mortgage, the property has to be habitable. So you have to be able to live in it, and that makes it mortgageable. And you have to have, all your utilities coming into it, and you could move in tomorrow. Even if you didn't like how it was inside, you could live there. With bridging, it allows that if the property's uninhabitable, which means it's unmortgageable, you can still go and get a loan. So if you know that all the electrics need to be redone, but all the water needs to be done, and so you can't live there, and so it's not mortgageable, then you use bridging, so you can go and purchase the property, do the work, and then move on to a mortgage at the end of it.
I see. Let's say we buy a distressed housing and we did all the work, and before we doing the refinance, would it be ideal to get a surveyor to come in to our work first, or would the lender get a surveyor themselves to check how much they can lend?
But the lender would always instruct their own survey.
Yep.
And as a client, you would always have to pay for their surveys to be done.
Yep.
For you purchasing property, wanting to make sure it meets all the standards, you could go and get one done yourself to say yes, you're happy with how everything is, that they can't see anything the matter. That all building regs, if you have to meet building regulations, they'll get all of those signed off as well. That's part of the process. But as I said, from a surveying point of view, the lender will always have a survey done as well.
Yeah, because what I understand is they all have different banks or lenders. They have their panel of surveyors, and obviously there's roughly about 4 to 5 or 6 of them. Countrywide being one of the most prominent player in the field, so it will be ideal to get the likes of Nationwide come in to do the survey reports first, and then once that's done, and then maybe when the lender surveyors come in and the valuation is a bit lower from the initial reports, we can refer to our own reports to maybe reevaluate again with it. Or
sometimes you can challenge them. In very few cases do the challenges go through.
Yeah.
So you can always try it, but they're not always successful.
I see, I understand. Yeah, that's fine. OK，
講到 refinance 啦，咁refinance 呢度佢哋嘅利率同普通 mortgage 咧有乜分別咧？其實佢分別個利率係保持一樣嘅，咁尤其是係 buy to let 啦，咁呢個利率同即係本地同埋海外人士有冇分別咧？亦都佢哋個 rate 仍然係一樣嘅。咁當然如果你需要做 mortgage 或者remortgage 嘅話啦，係咪？你首先你間屋係一個 habitable state， 咁即係代表譬如你當你間屋冇熱水啦，係咪？你就做唔到呢個 mortgage 嘅。如果你間屋係適合人住啦，係咪？有熱水或者有電啦，係咪？就可以即係符合到佢哋嘅要求，就可以做到呢個 financing， 包括咗 refinance 同埋你普通 mortgage。咁有陣時如果你經由買啲屋咧比較 distress 啲啊，爛啲咧， 咁呢個咧其實你可以利用bridging 呢個形式去借錢去執間屋嘅。bridging 同普通 mortgage 有乜分別咧？就係mortgage 一定要間屋係住得到人先至借到錢啦。bridging 咧就唔係嘅，你就算間屋爛咧，仍然借到錢得，不過係每個月計，係每個月俾1%。咁通常係俾啲project 啊或者development 嘅人咧，利用呢個形式去將個去揾錢咯。咁如果你用 bridging 形式或者自己俾現金出嚟買一個 distress housing 整好咗之後啦，然之後佢就去做 refinance 啦。咁通常 refinance 嗰度去俾25年延期你嘅，咁頭嗰2年係 fixed rate 啦，之後就會浮動利率噶啦。咁fixed rate 完咗之後咧，其實你亦都可以再揾一個fixed rate 嘅產品去選擇咯。咁當然睇下市場當其時市場嗰個浮動率而定啦。如果你 fixed rate 係高過你嘅浮動率嘅，咁當然你嗰段時間最好揾一個variable rate 嘅 stick to variable rate 先啦。咁當然如果你嘅 fixed rate 係低嘅，即係唔使講都知道 fixed rate 嗰個時間咧就揾 fixed rate 比較好啲咯。有啲人問需唔需要自己揾個 surveyor 去做個 report 先咧？咁呢個唔係必須要做嘅嘢嚟嘅，因為本身佢哋按揭公司咧都會有唔同嘅 surveyor 公司去做呢個估價程序㗎啦。咁當如果佢估價估得低嘅話咧，可唔可以 challenge 佢哋嘅 decision 咧？呢個係可以嘅。咁當然你要夠 evidence 同埋有其他 backup 先至可以 challenge 到佢嘅估價咯。咁我哋自己經驗上咧，就好多銀行咧都會俾即係個估價咧都會低於市價嘅。原因就係佢哋想secure 自己，即係 minimize 佢哋嘅風險啦。所以通常會減5至10% 左右咯。
But with mortgages, you'd be able to mortgage the London property. It wouldn't be up to the full 100%, but you could go up to the maximum LTV that the lenders offer, and then you'd be able to say that you're raising that money to go and invest in another property. So you'd still have to have some of your equity in the property, but you could go and get the remaining equity out to go and purchase another property.
Yeah, so basically the rates are different. How much they can loan to value is different to lender from lender. Obviously, they are still able to use the reason for investment or buying second property as the reason.
Yes, yeah, definitely.
咁有人問如果佢哋倫敦有個物業咧，可唔可以借100% 嘅錢去買第二個物業啦？咁係唔得嘅，因為我哋暫時未見到一間銀行可以 loan to value 100% 啦。咁當然你問我如果借到幾多咧？間銀行唔一樣。咁銀行 A 可能借得個50%，銀行 B 可能借得75%，銀行 C 可能借到80%。咁每間銀行佢哋嘅利率可能有差別啦，都係跟你嗰個個人資料而定。咁所以就要揾個 broker 去睇下你嘅個人情況，同埋佢同你搜查邊間銀行俾到最好嘅 deal 俾你咯。
So again, it's different lender to lender. Some lenders say that you're only with them for 5 years and you're on a rate for 5 years. And at the end of those 5 years, you need to be able to pay off the loan. Other lenders will say, so you're on this fixed rate for 5 years, but you've got a term mortgage with us for 20 years. So after those 5 years, it will go on to their standard variable rate, but you will be able to have a choice at that point as to whether you want to go onto their standard variable rate or if you want to go on to another fixed rate product, or indeed you want to go to another lender without incurring any early repayment charges.
咁講到佢 fixed rate period 完咗之後會點咧？咁自動佢都通常會變成一個 variable rate 即係浮動利率啦。咁你可以選擇再去一個 fixed rate 形式去進行嘅，呢個係冇問題。
So I mean, would it be different for if we want to buy a property in Scotland compared to UK? Is it harder for expats to get a mortgage in Scotland?
It's harder for most people to get a mortgage in Scotland. It doesn't matter whether you're international or UK based. Scottish property law is different, and so there's not as many lenders in that area who will go and lend on property in Scotland. There is a couple at the moment during the pandemic, they're not lending, but hopefully things will change and they will come back into play again. Their rates do tend to be a lot higher than English and Welsh mortgages because it is still different, but they are available.
Yeah, because what I understand from the Scottish housing law is tenants are lifetime tenants, and a lot of time they got more rights, pays favour in the tenants compared to the owner of the property. So I mean, also Scottish house is quite cheap anyway.
咁有人問到喺蘇格蘭係咪好難做按揭咧？咁唔理你係香港人好啊、英國人好，甚至乎蘇格蘭人又好啦。咁亦都係有喺蘇格蘭做按揭咧，係 buy to let 按揭咧係比較難嘅。主要原因就係因為佢哋嘅蘇格蘭嘅法律係同英國好係非常之 difference 啦。
Okay, so what are the requirements for HMO mortgage if they are to apply for a mortgage for HMO?
Okay, again, it differs lender to lender, but the main point is that you've either got experience, at least 2 years experience anywhere in the world, that you've previously or you currently have got finance, again, anywhere in the world. And then another couple of lenders say that you don't need to have 2 years experience, like to have to already own a property in the UK, so it has to be your second property that you're looking at. So the main thing is that you have to have some sort of experience to be able to go into the HMO world of mortgages.
That's fine. And the way to show that is probably from the payments for the property rental property in other country or AST from that for 2-year period, is it? Yeah.
Yes, so it will show that your rents. So when you're providing your bank statements, they'll be able to show the rental income that's coming in. So that's
great.
咁講到如果HMO 嗰邊咧有咩 requirement 咧，亦都係主要就係睇下你有冇呢個經驗啦，去承擔呢個風險。因為 HMO 我同好多投資者講 ，HMO 係一個好高危嘅產品嚟㗎。咁你一定要有相當嘅experience， 嗰個 lender 先至會 consider 去借錢俾你去做 HMO。And
when are we looking to have some changes or improvement from the pandemic period over?
So from the residential point of view, we're starting to see that LTVs are starting to slowly increase.
Yeah.
I would hope that from an investment point of view, we would see LTVs start to increase once we can start having physical valuations take place again.
Yeah.
Hope, and once everything starts to settle down and industry's more comfortable with what's happening and their confidence levels come up, then there'll be more lenders available again, so the lenders will increase. But it would be once we know everything that's happening and how movement of people can be again, and social distancing and all of such like that, and they can find ways to work around it and adapt circumstances, then we'd hope to see the changes happening.
Yeah, and also I know a lot of surveyor got a backlog of order and court cases and court cases as well. So we're looking at roughly about 5 to 6 months delay for a lot of cases from some reports I heard.
I don't know how long the delay is going to be. I know that the cases that we had where they've asked for above 65% LTV, they've had to be halted until it happens. Once they start moving, then we'll have the clear indication of how long those surveys are going to take to go through and get completed.
Yeah, that's it. So fingers crossed, hopefully this lockdown and pandemic will be over soon.
Yeah, hopefully there'll be some movement soon.
Thank you, Fran. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
哇！聽完輝哥同 Mortgage Broker 嘅分享之後咧，今日就真係解答咗大家好多嘅疑問啦。多謝晒輝哥啊！今日
係啊，咁都係嗰句啦。咁每個人需要嘅投資方向都唔一樣嘅。咁最緊要就係同我哋嘅團隊了解咗你嘅需求先啦。 然之後我哋就會製造一個 plan 俾你去點樣實行你嘅想要嘅投資方向咯。咁係啦，交把俾你啦 ，thank you。